And I had this gift for you, actually.
Oh, whoa.
It's
Really?
sort of a souvenir from Poland.
Whoa. Look at this.
I thought that would be my little conversation starter, actually.
This one?
All three of them. Because
Good.
all
I love
three
it.
of them share a common element,
Yeah. Yes.
I guess,
Good.
which is
Nice.
silicone, actually. And I thought that it's fascinating that silicone is like for millennia with us, and it's still here. I mean, we started with earthenware, with stoneware, and we ended up with semiconductors or with that kind of device to brew your tea.
That's a silicone rubber, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So
Hey, this is great.
we gave up probably on many materials in the history of mankind,
Yeah.
but silicone turned out to be so durable in our history.
I mean, we have a lot of it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's a very, very common element in the Earth's crust. So, I guess there's one thing is that it is what the rocks are made of silicate, right? Aren't they? A lot of that. So, I guess it feels to me like given that we grow up on a planet where we have to turn the rocks into things, and the rocks have a lot of silicon in it, then maybe that's part of the reason, right? But also silicon is in group 4 of the periodic table underneath carbon, and carbon is also one of the very key elements. And the reason that carbon is so useful is it has 4 bonds, and that means it can make an enormous range of molecules. And silicon's underneath it, and silicon is like carbon. They're both massively useful elements because of their bonding structure. So for me, that's probably part of the reason, which is that carbon and silicon both share that.
To make some like basic order in the kitchen.
Yeah,
kitchen
yeah,
is order.
yeah.
We have metals here, and we have ceramics.
Yeah.
And these two, when I'm thinking about these two, I'm thinking about the heat transfer and how very different those two materials or kinds of materials work concerning heat transfer. Could you explain how does that differ and how does it work?
Yeah. Okay, so in metals, heat is transferred via electrons, which are free to move. That's what makes a metal a metal.
Yes.
Is that electrons are free to move around, and so that's also why they conduct electricity. So they tend to be very good at conducting heat, and so that's good for cooking, right? Because you have a heat source, and you don't necessarily you want it to kind of cook the food, so you want it to travel through the pot. And sometimes it can be too good, so then it will burn the food too much. That's why you want a thick-bottomed frying pan sometimes, because you want the heat to even out, so you don't want it to come just through the hot spots. So thermal conductivity comes in really important for that. But let's say you're boiling some water, and obviously you want it to happen fast, so you want it to travel through the material fast. But then when you come to something like a ceramic, the heat doesn't travel through the electrons. The electrons are not moving around. Actually, the vibrations of the atom next to each other is pushing the heat around, and that can be very inefficient. And so ceramics tend to be, not very good heat conductors compared to metals. But they're not terrible either. And in fact, things like wood and plastics tend to be much worse. And they're called insulators, heat insulators. And I think in a way it's an unsolved problem, the handle of a pot.
Oh yes.
Don't you think?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so this teapot is actually poor design in some ways, because that will get hot, and maybe too hot. Although in general with tea it's not too bad. But especially for the handle on a pan on a cooker, people choose wood or they use plastics because they're insulators, but then they have to join them to the metal, and that turns out to be the weak link, and often breaks, and is often constantly breaking.
I have numerous examples of that in my kitchen.
Exactly. Or they go, okay, we won't do that. We'll have a metal handle because that will be a better join, which is true. But then the handle is almost always burning you.
Yeah. Like in case of this cup.
Yeah. And it's an unsolved problem. Have you ever come across a set of cookware that has solved this problem? No.
Not really, no.
So this is what material scientists do: is they find a problem like that and they try to solve it. That's what I do. That's why I do what I do, because I like finding those problems and thinking about them and thinking about solutions to them.
Then there is another thing about those free electrons in metals that makes metal reactive, and we don't want it in the kitchen.
Yeah, although it depends on the chemistry. So that's, I mean, one of the biggest breakthroughs for cooking has been the development of stainless steel, because stainless steel is in general very unreactive. It's not completely inert, but it's very unreactive, and so that means you can have almost perfectly, unreactive pots that are made of steel, and that makes. I mean, I'm always amazed that I've got a pot that's 20 years old and it's still as bright and shiny like the day it was new. I find that really appealing, because let's not forget about cooking, which is cooking is about the eye. It's about perception. It's you cook something to look good, and you how you feel about the food depends on what it's in, how it's cooked, what it's cooked in. If it's been cooked in a shiny pan, that's a very different feeling. So you go into any professional kitchen, what do you see? It's full of stainless steel.
Stainless steel, yeah.
And it's clean, cleanable, unstained, and that's telling you something about it. It tries to tell you a language of cleanliness, right? Of little contamination. It's basically got us to where we are today, and yet most people these days, if they don't know anything about steel, they don't understand what an amazing material is, what sophisticated material it is, the science behind it, but also the craft and the art behind it. I find that really sad. They sit down at their table, they've got stainless steel in their hand, which is a miracle. They've got the sharpest cutting knives they could ask for very cheap. And these are, if you went back 100 years, people would their jaws would drop. The richness, the material richness that the average person has in their house is just incredible.